Hello! Welcome back to my channel. My name is Kelsey and I'm here today to do my April TBR.
Oh, hi. Thanks for checking in. I'm still a piece of garbage.
So in the month of March, I went through a reading slump. I did read 10 books overall, but I still consider it a reading slump for me. I just wasn't in the mood to read as frequently as I normally do. And that could be because I made a really big purchase in March. So that was really exciting, but we're here today to do my April TBR, not a wrap up. So let's get into it. So you would think, oh, you went through a reading slump, you should plan to read smaller books. And that would be a good decision for anyone other than my ambitious Capricorn self. I have two 1,000-page books on my TBR, so let's get into it. The first book I would like to read in the month of April is A Dance with Dragons by George R.R. Martin. This is the 5th book in the Game of Thrones series and the last one that has been published so far. George, let's go. So I won't get into what this one is about because again, it's 1,000 pages, but that's not even a lot compared to the amount of pages that have been written, the amount of story that has been developed over the last 5 books. So I'll give you a very brief synopsis of the first, which was a Game of Thrones. So in a Game of Thrones, there is this family called the Stark family, and one day Ned Stark, who is the patriarch of the family, his friend, who is the king, he comes to Winterfell with his family in order to get Ned to become his hand back in King's Landing. Obviously, the story develops from there. There's a lot of people vying for the throne, and obviously in this book we are dealing with the repercussions of that. So 1,000 pages, I'm here for it. I want to finish this reread so that I can be fully prepared whenever the last book comes out.
We're actually waiting for 2 more books. Lol, come on, George.
Then I also wanted to read The Stand. I am at this point 200 pages into it. I wanted to read this because Amazon Prime, I think, is coming out with an adaptation of this series, and I was really interested in finally reading this. I've had this on my TBR for quite a bit of time, and essentially I had zero idea what this book was going into it, and as I was listening to the audiobook, slowly things started revealing themselves. And if you've read this book, then you know what this book is about, and this is probably not the best time to pick it up, but alas, here we are. So The Stand is a 1,000-page book that essentially starts with a pandemic. From what I understand, the book is more than that. I think the pandemic is what kind of sets off the novel. We're still into the developments of that, 200 pages in. And I think from what I gather, the book is about the followers after like 99% of the population dies. And these characters kind of have to choose what side they want to be on. And I think it's kind of a discussion on good versus evil. And there's these like religious figures that pop up that these people are kind of having to choose what side they want to be on. Like I said, I don't really know what it's about. It's 1,000 pages. I'm sure it's much more developed and more things happen than that. This is also the first time I've been going into a Stephen King novel not knowing what it's about at all, but also being kind of scared of the subject matter. There's not a lot of Stephen King novels that have scared me that I've read, and I think this would even be considered more like science fiction dystopian, but at the current time that we are living in now, this is definitely more horrific than I was expecting. Then I have a couple of other books. They're a lot shorter to help me get through these chunkers. So the first of which is Dreaming Sun Volume 1 by Ichiko Takano. I am reading this for Books and Lala's Buzzwordathon. So if you watched any of my TBRs in the last couple of months, then you'll know that Books and Lala is hosting this year-long readathon called Buzzwordathon, and every month there is a word or prompt and you kind of have to fit your books into that. For this month, it's kind of like planetary, spacey words, so sun would fit into that. This book series follows a girl named Kameko Shimana who doesn't really feel at place at home, and one day she decides to skip school. When she does so, she meets a man in a park who offers her another home to stay at. This opportunity comes with 3 conditions. The first of which is that Kameko Shimana has to tell the man why she ran away from home. The second condition is that she needs to find the missing house key. And the third condition is to have a dream and fall in love. I read the manga series Orange by this author, really loved the art and the story that manga told. So I'm really looking forward to diving into her other series and seeing if I enjoy it just as much. The art in this is very similar to the Orange comics, and I know that I love that style, so I'm very looking forward to picking this up. The next book I would like to read is one of my classic books from my classic TBR, which I will link up above. This is A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway. I have never read Hemingway before, but when I saw this at my local bookstore for $5, I decided to just pick it up and try this one as my first Hemingway. I don't know if it's a good decision, but it's the decision I went with. So this is Hemingway's discussion on like love and and war. It follows a young lieutenant named Frederick Henry, and he serves in the ambulance corps in Italy during World War I. What I'm guessing happens just by the cover is that he falls in love during a time of war, and this is kind of like Hemingway's discussion on that. I don't know, we'll find out. Then I really want to get into Robin Hobb. I've heard nothing but excellent things about her fantasy worlds and her fantasy series, her writing, so she sounds like the perfect author for me. And I decided to test out her writing with this short novella called The Willful Princess and the Piebald Prince. So I'm going to read the back of this because I don't really know what this is about, and because it's so short, I feel like I'm just gonna read it so we all understand what it's about. So long before the time of the chivalry farcier.
Excuse me, how did I pronounce chivalry? Law.
Which I'm guessing is the main character of her big expansive world series called the Farseer trilogy, so I'm assuming this is who it is. There was another indiscreet member of the royal line. Princess Caution Farseer, in defiance of her name, was headstrong and willful, destined to fall dangerously in love where she ought not. The child she bore, a witted boy known as the Piebald Prince, rose to favor despite his questionable bloodlines. But the dukes of the six duchies backed canny Farseer for the throne, and so both young men compete for power. I know it will give me a taste of Robin Hobb's writing and see if I really enjoy it. I have heard excellent things about this novella, so I'm very interested to go into this and see what Robin Hobb is all about. The next book is part of my Brandon Sanderson project that I have going on, where I try and want to read one Brandon Sanderson book a month this year. This month I want it to be a reread. Sorry, my neighbors are so loud, I have to close the door to my room. So this is The Alloy of Law, and it is the first book in the second era of the Mistborn World series universe, and I want to reread this because I never continued with this second series, and so I want to just refresh my mind before I go into the second book, The Shadows of Self. But this book takes place years after the first Mistborn trilogy, so I'll go into what that series is about. That series follows a man named Kelsier who teaches a young girl named Vin to work allomancy, and in this universe, allomancy is this kind of power where you can ingest metals, and each metal gives you a different power. And where this series takes off, it's kind of like a cowboy era. There's a lot of guns and stuff. So I was really intrigued by this series because, like I said, the allomancy comes from ingesting metals, and when guns and bullets are involved, that's a really interesting take on this allomancy power. So very looking forward to rereading this and continuing the series because I feel like it's going to be excellent. The next book I'm reading is because of the Late Night Book Club, and this book club is hosted by Noel, Elias, and Joel on their channels every month, and this is The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. Sorry if I mispronounced that. The R is very difficult for me to pronounce. In my time on BookTube, I have heard absolutely nothing but positive things about this book. This book is about a young boy who helps his father at his bookstore, and this young boy discovers a book called The Shadow of the Wind. But when the young boy searches to find this author's other books, he discovers that someone has been deliberately destroying them. On this quest to discover who is doing so, the young boy named Daniel opens a door to Barcelona's deepest and darkest secrets. So, like I said, heard nothing but excellent things. Very excited to pick this one up, and I'm hoping I love it just as much as everybody else. The next book I have here is from the oldest books on my TBR video, and I will link that up above. But this is Midnight at the Electric by Jolie Lynn Anderson. So this book has a trope that I really love in novels, where it follows multiple perspectives, but all these perspectives are somehow linked, and you only really find out at the end, and I absolutely love that. So the first perspective takes place in Kansas in 2065, and this young girl named Adri is chosen to become a colonist. So she is one of the lucky few selected to travel and live on Mars. The next perspective takes place in Oklahoma in 1934. Amid the fear and uncertainty of the Dust Bowl, Catherine kind of has to figure out how to save her family's farm and everything that she loves. And the last perspective is in England in 1919. A young girl named Lenore is struggling with the grief of her brother, whom she lost in World War I. So right now, none of these perspectives make sense. However, I'm really expecting a beautiful novel. I think I got this recommendation from Books and Lala, who I already mentioned in this video, link down below. If I recall correctly, she really liked this book, and usually I do tend to like the books that Books and Lala likes because they're like weird and sci-fi-y, and I can already see from the first perspective that we'll have that. So it's short, and I'm extremely looking forward to reading this one. And then the last book I have is from my nonfiction TBR. Again, I will link it somewhere up there, but this is The Fire Never Goes Out by Noelle Stevenson. Noelle Stevenson is one of my favorite comic book artists, writers. One of my favorite books by them is Nimona. absolutely adored it. This is a nonfiction graphic memoir. So just from the dust jacket, this says that Noelle Stevenson charts the highs and lows of being a creative human in the world. I know that this will really chart the queer aspect of their life as well. So looking forward to this. I love this author's work, so I know that this will be something I really enjoy. I also have a couple of arcs on my TBR for this month that I want to get to, but I won't mention them here because I think I'm gonna do a video about it. So with that, these are the books that are on my April TBR. I'm gonna put them down. Let me know if you've read any of these books, if you've hated, if you've liked any of these books. I would love to know. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. It helps me a lot and makes me feel really good. I don't know how to end these things, so I guess I will see you next time. Bye!